You know, one of the things that happens in life is that the world, take it down just a little bit, that the world is really changing, and a lot of times we don't see it changing so much. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to look at, let's see if I can, look at how the world is really changing. And I have to say I've been doing this for 40 years, and in the past 5 years I've seen probably more change in the food market than in the previous 35 years. But consumers are changing and retail is changing. What I would like to do is focus a few minutes on how the consumers are changing and then look at all the different retail formats or the food distribution formats that are emerging. Now the fact is that none of these are going to be comparing to size to the traditional supermarkets. But I think we know what's happening with traditional supermarkets. You know, they're just losing a little bit every year. And so it becomes advantageous for all of us to look at where are people buying food. The world's different. Remember Norman Rockwell? And we have the modern family. The modern family's not the same. You remember these? The old grocery stores? A&P, once the largest supermarket chain in the USA. Gone. Gone. Now look, where do you buy your food? You're at a bus stop and you have these products and you can just walk up, click your phone, and they'll send you the products. That's what's happening. Why? Why is it happening? First of all, family size is changing. We have more and more childless households. We have a lot of dual income. And people are looking for smaller families and different families. But probably, I think one of the most surprising things, we have different generations all in the same household. We have sandwich generations. People that are taking care of older parents and younger children. We have boomerang kids. I had a boomerang kid. Went to New York, worked in advertising for 10 years and came home and said, "Hi, Dad." It changes your whole way of approaching the marketplace. But here's what I think is fascinating. The largest household size in the USA today are single-person households. But if I asked most people, describe the average American family, I'm sure they'd say 3 people. It's single-person households. And we're not alone, by the way. If we look at this, we see U.S. has, sorry that you can't see this too well, but you can see we have 27% of households are single-person households. Look at Sweden, 47%. My friend from England, 34% single-person household. How's that change how we do things? How's it change the way we bring product to market? Do you sell many of these enormous watermelons? I was in a supermarket the other day, and I just wanted to test how well the employees were. So I went up to this guy, and he had a big brown melon, and I said, "Can I buy half a melon?" "I don't think so, sir." I said, "Could you do me a favor? Could you just ask the manager?" So the kid walks back to the manager, and he didn't see I was walking with him. And he says to the manager, "There's some jackass out there wants to buy half of a melon." And he looks at me and he said, "And this gentleman wants the other half." But you need to think about How does that change how we bring produce to the market? You know, how do we approach these kinds of things? Because it's not the same world. In the U.S., obviously, it's Hispanic. Growth in the Hispanic market is 167%. They eat differently. They eat different foods. And yet, I have done a lot of audits in supermarkets that are right in the middle of a Hispanic neighborhood, and you would have thought they were, you know, in Collingswood, New Jersey, Lily White Collingswood. Do you know who's shopping here? You know, one of the most successful supermarkets in the inner city it's a ShopRite owned by a guy named Jeff Brown. And when Jeff Brown builds a store, mostly in the inner city, he simply looks at who's there, and the choice of food is totally determined by who comes to the stores. He was in a part of Philadelphia that had a large West African, not African American, but West African, and the foods were targeted to West Africans. By the way, it got some attention. Jeff Brown sat next to Michelle Obama at the State of the Union speech for the impact that this guy had by focusing on these kinds of markets. But here's what happened. Everyone is now trying to sell food. Everyone is trying to get into the food business. And they're coming all different ways. And the impact is they're taking it away from our traditional supermarket channels, which most of us, that's our primary customer. I don't want to be too dire about this, but fighting about how much space you get in a supermarket is not much different for fighting for the best stateroom on the Titanic. Take a look at how the channels are changing. Supermarkets growing at about 3.5%, but look at this. Drugstores 3.6, convenience stores 6.3, value channels 8.4. Everyone's in this market. Everyone's trying to get a piece of this. Who's building the most stores? Look at this. Dollar stores, convenience stores, pharmacies, gas stations, Dollar Trees. Where's the traditional supermarket? We got a Kroger in there. They're putting up stores like crazy. And they all want food customers. You know why they want food customers? Because if you're a pharmacy, you buy your drugs once a month. Either that or on the street, you know. But usually you go to the pharmacy. How often do you go to buy food? Every couple days people are buying food. Every couple of days. So these things draw people into the stores. You know, I'm not talking about superstores because we know they've always had it. But if you take a look at Target, in their traditional stores, they're putting more and more food. More and more fresh food. But you know, they're selling it as eaches. They're selling an individual tomato. They're selling individual potatoes. Because they're not trying to get you to buy next week's food. You're in the store. We have a Target near us. My wife, my sweet wife, who's sitting here putting up with me talking, was going to make tacos and realized she didn't have the tomato. She ran into Target, picked up the tomato, and came back. How much do you think she paid for that one tomato? No one knows. It didn't matter what the price was. And that's what happens. They're able to get that kind of margin. And so you're talking about not the super centers, but the regular stores are focusing on trying to get today's meals food. By the way, they have meat. They have like 2 or 3 SKUs of meat. Who else? Pharmacies. This is one of my favorites, a CVS pharmacy. Here's their flyer. A food mart. A food mart on the CVS flyer. Look at the things that they're selling. Tuna, popcorn, Pepsi, drinks, etc. More than that if you go there now. This is an older flyer. They don't even have aspirin on there. And go in the stores and you can see more and more food. And you know the nice thing is, a lot of these stores, like the pharmacies, don't have a tradition of fresh. They need help with that. It's easy for them to put Star-Kissed tuna on the shelf. It's not any different than putting hair gel on the shelf. But as they slowly move into this fresh area, and they want everything eaches or it's very simple, pre-priced, etc. They need help. They know they need help. And this is a place where you could offer a little value added. We're just not going to come in there and try and have the cheapest price. Look at convenience stores. Convenience stores are selling more and more food. In our area, we have something called Wawa. Wawa has isn't that a stupid name? I tell people that. You know what it means? Does anyone know what it means? It's an Indian word for lone flying goose. You know. Yeah, lone flying goose. I don't know what's dumber, Wawa or lone flying goose, but it's a very, very successful chain, and they're moving further and further in the area of food. Here's an example of convenience stores. What convenience stores do that are the gas station type stores? Look at this. We're in the middle of a time famine, right? We don't really have time for anything. But we usually have about 4 or 5 minutes with absolutely nothing to do. When is that? When you're filling your gas tank. So what a lot of these stores are doing are printing out coupons while you're standing there at the gas pump. Kind of, you know what else they're doing? This is still in test market, but you know, they have the speakers, and they're saying, would you like a gallon of milk, or, you know, making offers, being aggressive. Can I get you something? You say yes, and you just, you know, it's on the receipt. You don't, when you go in, you don't stop at the cash register. You walk in, you have your receipt in your hand, and you pick up your milk or you pick up something else. Couldn't somebody steal something? Of course they could. But you're weighing the huge margin you're getting versus people occasionally stealing something. And they do it now already with sandwiches. You go up there and you order on a screen for your sandwich, right? And you know, you go and you go to the cashier and you walk out with the sandwich. So it's already done. And we see here's an example of them doing this. Now another really big chain is the grocerant. Are you familiar with the grocerant? I mean, the grocerant is, I'm not quite sure if it's a restaurant or a supermarket, but it's usually a lot more upscale. It usually has terrific kinds of foods and all sorts of sausage. You look at these people and you think, man, they must have about 10 chefs in that store. You know how many chefs they usually have in the store? 1. And then they have 9 people that dress like chefs. So interesting. You know, the traditional grocery stores, it always gets me that people don't understand the value of costumes. You know, people wear anything they want, or an apron in a store. You know, but it seems like everyone else understands but supermarkets. Any of you going to go to a play while you're here? Suppose you went to Cats, right? The people come out dressed like cats. And they go, midnight, not a cloud, you know, singing away, looking like a cat. We know they're not cats. But would it be the same if someone walked out on the stage dressed like me and started singing a song? Of course not. Costumes are important. Grocerants use costumes. Here's the home direct is really becoming an amazing phenomena that a person of my age has no real understanding of. I really don't. A friend of mine, equally as old as me, rented a house at the seashore for his children, his grandchildren, etc. The whole family gets to the house, and he says, okay, here's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to run to the grocery store. We're going to pick up our food. We're going to get our cleaning supplies. His daughter said, why? She pointed on the 4 boxes from Amazon. Didn't need to go to the store. She had everything you needed to. You know, you could have put a gun to my head and said, how are you going to get these? So I never would have thought of doing that. These kids, they just think of this automatically. Got one of them sitting right here. You know, Amazon Fresh, think about the number of food items. 500,000 food items. How many does a typical supermarket have? 50,000? 60,000? 500,000 items. Think you could find something you like? I want to talk about another channel, virtually unused in the produce industry, the online shopping channels. You might say to me, John, isn't that used for computers and makeup and things like that? Yeah, but it's used for food as well. One of the shows, this guy, I think they got the spokesperson from South Philly, Nunzio. But think about this. Nunzio's looking into the camera, right? And he's talking to you personally. You know, and then Nunzio says, my mom, she says, Nunzio, when you make the spaghetti salsa, you make it with, you just can't believe how wonderful this sounds. And while Ragu and Prego are trying to sell a jar for $3, he sold out at $14 a jar. To get on this show, you have to guarantee $250,000 every 15 minutes. And everyone I know has run out of product selling the product. But you know, it's not food. Yeah? Take a look at this. This is what other people are selling. Appetizers, this is the number of items. 77 different beverages, bread, muffins, brownies, chocolates. Look at this, entrees, 33 different entrees. Companies get on there and sell entrees. They sell crab cakes. They sell turkeys. They sell sausage. What's missing? Produce. I guess we're so wealthy we don't need to make $1 million every few months. I guess we don't have something really special to tell people about. We just want to let the world decide what the prices are for our products. Look at this. And no produce. Another thing that's happening is these subscription services. Every month they send you something. And I don't think the produce industry per se is really focused on this issue. I used to consult for the Florida Department of Citrus, and they were really struggling. And I said, is any segment of your business making money? They said, yeah, the gift box people, or the fruit of the month people, they're really making money. I said, is there anything we can learn from that? They thought, looked at each other, and finally concluded, nah, that's a different market. We're seeing all the different people sending it on a regular basis. I'll be honest with you. If mushrooms had some sort of subscription service, when I got them, I'd make them. The single biggest reason people don't buy mushrooms is they forget to buy them. If you're going to have steak and mushrooms, you never forget the steak. But if you had them there in the house, I'd use them. These subscription boxes are This is from Blue Apron. The next one is Blue Apron. Look at that. Whatever frequency you want, every month, every 2, whatever frequency you want, you get a box of food that is specifically to make a meal, a specific meal. And you get and you see, making the meal, no matter how busy we are, it is still really important. Food is about not just, I'm so sick of this whole nutrition thing and good health and, food is about love. First date I ever had, cover your ears, Carol. We went to dinner. When my children were baptized, we had a big meal. When Carol and I got married, we had 200 lobsters. You celebrate with food. It's meaningful, and people don't want to come in, usually it's the female, don't want to come in and say, look at what I nuked for you tonight. But if you have all the ingredients and you have the recipe, you have permission to say, look at what I made for you, darling. You have permission to show love and affection with your food. This is becoming extremely important. Is it a big market, by the way? Is it anywhere near the size of your supermarket? Of course not. These are emerging markets. And somebody in your company should be saying, is there some way that we can become a part of what's happening? As opposed to just trying to do the same thing over and over, where sales might be down just a little bit. And what I like is people get together and they say, you know what, next year we got to increase our sales 6%. Especially the president comes in. Next year we're going to make a 6%. And every once in a while you hear, and we're going to do it by working harder. Who the hell is not working as hard as they can? I went to one of those meetings and I heard this guy in the back seat say, how are we going to do it? I mean, this was an out of place slide. We're seeing more and more food distributed. These are meals sold to kids. These are not fundraisers. You know how the fundraisers are. You get $2 worth of peanuts for $12. That's the fundraising stuff. But this is the real thing. Look, this program is run by Tyson. And the kids bring home the food from school. And if they don't, look, little leprechaun, when you drop the kids off at school, in the preschool, they'll give you a choice of 2 meals. And you say, well, I'll take 2 of the beef and 1 of the chicken. When you come and pick up the kids, you get your dinner. You don't have to make an extra stop. How much extra would you pay to not make a stop with kids in the car? You know what it's like? When I have my grandkids, it takes me about 10 minutes to get them all out of the car. They're buckled up. They're in all these, things, and you set them on the side. You say, don't move. It's like Houdini. Where'd they go? When I was a kid, my mother would run into the store, leave the motor running, right? And would be sitting there like this, and she'd say, I hope no one steals you. Who's thought about this? This is not their primary business. This is not what they're, they're trying to please their customers. Can you help them? Can you help them? I mean, these are probably some of the parents that are interested in healthier foods for their kids. Won't bore you, this is the office delivery. We're seeing more office delivery. Supermarkets at airports. We're seeing more and more of these all the time. Here's Campbell's Soup is selling in the supermarket airports. Let me ask you a question. The people who are getting off a plane, they're going home to an empty refrigerator, do they want to shop for produce the same way they would if they're walking around on a Saturday afternoon trying to fill their basket? I mean, you've got to say, what is it that they want that we can give them that makes it a perfect purchase. This is a section from an airport supermarket. Look at the produce. I'm not making this stuff up. You know, almost every one of these examples, somebody's already doing it. This is not like I'm from Star Wars. You know, I mean, it's really happening. Gyms are going gourmet. Here's where I think we're going to see a huge change. Vending. Vending. There's so much can be done with vending, and it's so effective. And people are going to get more and more used to it. This is, for example, a vending area in a bus stop. A bus stop. You come home from work, but what's the advantage of this? These are all computer run, right? I mean, you know exactly how long those tomatoes have been there. You know exactly how long the mushrooms have been sitting in there. You know, you have much more control, and these are, I think this was in, I think this was in Romania, by the way. Here's another vending machine, almost all produce. People come up, they pay with their phone. Grower farm vending. Another example, all the product you can buy in vending machines when people are on the go, when people are coming someplace and they only want a salad for dinner and they don't want to stop at another place. And virtually none of these require cash. Even the antiquated ones where you have to put a credit card in, which for me is like really forward thinking. Not as bad as my mother. I bought my mother a TV, you know, and of course it has a remote. She'd never use the remote. She was always getting up and turning the channel. Hey, Mother, you have a remote. Just point it, and she said, I'm afraid I'll miss the TV. She thought it was a laser, you know, that like she missed, the lamp would blow up. More vending. Here's one. Just about, it's called the self-service supermarket. It has different temperature control. This is the automated convenience store. This is, you know, I mean, it's not just the food industry. I want to be clear. I mean, this is a vending machine that's just for kids' products. Diapers and drinks and all of these kinds of things. And your kid needs a change of diaper and you're on the road. Are you going to say, I could get these diapers cheaper someplace else? Not going to, right? You're going to buy what they have. We're seeing more to go from restaurants. But here's the thing, the next few you might be a little surprised by. Home centers are selling more and more food. This is an actual shot from Home Depot right now. It's still primarily beverages and snacks and refrigerated food, etc. There's no reason to suggest that they won't be involved with fresh. Staples. Anyone go to Staples to see how much food they have? You don't think about it, but they have so many food items. This is from their promotional information. What are they selling? Coffee. Coffee. I don't remember what that one is. Truck stops. How many people are focused on truck stops? There's thousands of these around the country. Flying J, etc. Travel centers, you know, they don't call them truck stops anymore, they're travel centers. And they're selling fresh. And think about this. These truck drivers are buying 100% of what they eat while they're on the road. They're walking in there. You can only eat so many hamburgers, ladies and gentlemen, even for a truck driver. They're looking for some of these other things. Look, we got the grab and go. We have the bananas. What else could you, how could you go to a travel center, truck stop, and say, I want to help you do better with some of the fresh food. We're going to help you with this. Again, by the way, sorry, but these are slightly out of order. Staples has over 40 different coffee items alone. They sell a tremendous amount of food. Here's one, college bookstores. How much effort do people put in selling to college bookstores? And ladies and gentlemen, this is like having 15,000 eating machines within 2 or 3, 100 yards. They're eating and drinking machines. Well, drinking and eating machines, I should really say. But they're there, and really, you don't find these things in the bookstore. Someone help them, help them. What's happening? The students are going off to other places to look for this product. This is a shot of a college bookstore. Doesn't look like a college bookstore, but they're getting involved more and more with the food. Bed Bath and Beyond. They have spices and oils and tortillas. I mean, this is not going to be your first choice for fresh produce. It's not your first choice. But it should be an eye-opening experience that everyone wants to sell you food. And the elephant in the room. And I'm not going to have time to go into this in any detail, but quite frankly, this whole digital, mobile phenomena is totally changing the way we're doing business. I have made a conscious effort not to learn too much about this. A couple of years ago, what was the name of that dancer that that was on that show? That I can't think of her name now. She used to be Hannah. Miley Cyrus, yeah, she's doing this dance, etc. But anyway, I know a lot of people use their computers, and I said to the class, how many of you twerk? They all kind of, and then one of my students said, Dr. Stanton, do you mean tweet? I said, yeah, that's it, that's the one. I knew it was close to that. But you can see what's happening with respect to this digital world, and I'm sure you're going to have other people talk about this, but look, the mobile shoppers are making more trips online, and they're actually spending more money. You've got to figure out how you're going to get into this market. Look at this. I can go to a baseball game and I can order a meal from the stands and they bring it down to me. It's just amazing. And if you're a Philly fan like I am, you'd rather get up and go get your food. But these are the things that can be done. And I already showed you taking pictures of on the bus stops, etc. So what's the channel? Are you ignoring the emerging channel for distribution? Are you putting all your eggs in one basket? Or are you, in fact, looking at these different emerging segments and saying, and evaluating and saying, well, maybe I don't want to do that. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you at least got to look at them and make a conscious decision that we should or we shouldn't, as opposed to going through the world blindly. I'd like to end with a quote from Charles Darwin, because everyone thinks Darwin said, the strongest survive. That's not what Darwin said. Darwin said, in the struggle for survival, the fittest win out at the expense of their rivals because they succeed in adapting themselves best to their environment. We have to adapt to our environment or we become extinct. Thank you very much for your attention.
new channels even within the retail sector. You know, we had the traditional supermarket, which is kind of the deal. We're now getting a lot of supermarkets that are spread geographically and take a little bit of a market, a Trader Joe's, a Sprouts, and stuff like that. Where do you see that? I mean, do you see that kind of gaining in the way that we've seen like the cash and carries? We're seeing kind of resurgence of cash and carry.
Absolutely.
U.S. Foods now has a retail deal.
Yep.
I mean, where do you see the role of those types of outfits?
Well, if we were talking to a group of retailers, I would be saying there are a lot of different consumers out there, and you've got to adopt that retail format. Kroger does a pretty good job. You know, Kroger has small stores. They have convenience stores. They have all these different kinds of formats targeted to different kinds of consumers. And we're actually seeing a downsize in the traditional supermarket is downsizing, as well as creating these express stores, which are bigger than a convenience store, but smaller than a traditional grocery store. And they have to do the same thing. For the most part, the retail food industry has focused on the segment. You know, they always say someone with a pulse and a penny. And we think we have to narrow that down a little bit. And who's done a great job? Wegmans in the East has done a great job at that. I think H-E-B has done a great job with that. You know, Whole Foods has done a great job with that. Targeting on someone and saying, we're going to give them what they want, and they're going to pay for this activity. Thank you.
John, it's good to see you again. This was a terrific thing. One of the experience we had in the last few months is this restaurant, retailer, I don't know what to call them, but the name of it is Italy, innovated in Italy, now in New York, now in Chicago. And it was just a phenomenon when you went in there. You didn't know a food store or a restaurant. Have you seen one of those?
Yeah, that's a little bit like these grocerants I was talking about, where you're really not sure. And a lot of times in the grocerants, they have the grocery store, and the chefs go and pick the food right from the shelves and make up those foods. The best one is in Texas called Eatzi's. You know, and I think we're going to see a lot more. There's someone, if you're interested, there's a website called the Grocerant Guru, and he talks a lot about this channel of distribution. Good seeing you, Jack. Yep, good.
The Consumers Reports and Market Force put out a customer survey of their favorite supermarkets, and typically we get Wegmans high on the list, we get Costco high on the list, and surprisingly, we get Aldi's. Now, you got Wegmans that's Disneyland for foodies, you got Costco that's got its little deal, and then almost the anti-Wegmans is Aldi's. Now, why those three very diverse formats tend to be the highest? What's kind of the common denominator there?
It's, there's no longer supermarkets that everybody likes a little. There's only going to be supermarkets that somebody likes a lot. And what's happening is these supermarkets in the middle, trying to do what they've done for the past 50 years, are getting picked off. They're getting picked off by the Aldis. You know, and you know, my mother would never go into a Whole Foods, ever. She's in love with Aldi. Do you know how cheap it is? You know? And so, I mean, that's her place to go. So if you look at these people on the top of the list, what they are is focused. You can walk into that store and say, and you can look around and you can say, I know who their customer is. I know who they're trying to sell. Walk into one of the traditional supermarkets and look around and say, who are they trying to sell? You have no idea. And of course, if you ask them, they say, well, we want everybody. You know, well, just because you want it doesn't mean it happens.
Professor Stanton, thank you so much.
My
Let's
pleasure.
show our appreciation.
Thank you again.